what I want to do today is before we get started, I want to thank you and thank you for being here. And we're going to talk about something that I love to talk about. That is implicit and explicit memory. Now, this is really important for trauma survivors to understand because many of us we have a trigger in the external experience, and then we have this internal experience, and then we freak out because we had this somatic experience. And when this clicked for me, I no longer freaked out about what was happening in my body, and that was a huge breakthrough. And that is because I've dug into this work so deeply that I had to understand what the hell is happening at the level of my body. Like what just happened? Why do I feel what I feel? I was feeling fine. And now I notice my husband huff and puff and I can't think straight. Literally my brain, and I explain it to Anthony all the time. He has no idea what I'm talking about. I think that's awesome because he doesn't have CPTSD. My brain feels like it's on fire. And it goes back to being a child and having these experiences of verbal abuse or physical abuse or being neglected and rejected as a child, which is akin to death for a little baby. That's what it is. So this type of abandonment trauma overrides the nervous system. It completely destroys the nervous system because we don't have the circuitry to understand what's happening. Because to us, if this bad thing is happening, our brain is triggered for survival. We feel like we're going to die. Now, I want to get into the memory, right? This implicit memory piece, and then I'm going to answer your questions. So hopefully this will click for you. And this is why I've recently started discussing about how talk therapy is not enough, because in talk therapy, you're speaking to my explicit memory. That's what I can recall. That's time, people, and the actual event. But it's not talking to the implicit memory. It's not addressing the memory that's been encoded in my body. And unless I can reach that level, I'm really not going to shift. So I will have some conscious understanding of my dad was an alcoholic. My mom was severely codependent. My mom tried to control my dad's drinking. She told us my dad didn't have a problem. We could feel the tension in the house, but mom wouldn't address it. She kept telling us everything was fine. Then my older brother started picking on me. Well, yeah, because he's absorbing the tension in the house. And now the siblings are fighting. And now dad's yelling at my older brother. And now mom's yelling at my older brother. So now we're scapegoating the older brother, even though he was a problem, but we're not addressing what really happened. Now, let's talk about emotions, because emotions are basically energy in motion. Where is this tension going? It doesn't disappear. It's being absorbed by the members of the family. The younger you are, the more dependent you are on these caretakers, the more afraid you are. The more afraid you are, the deeper the trauma. It just makes complete sense. So let me give you a little lesson about implicit versus explicit memory, because you have to understand your trauma. And remember also, it's not the event, that is not the trauma. People say, oh, I was traumatized by that thing. You're not traumatized. Trauma, let's say you are traumatized, but trauma, in the true sense of the word, is the residual. So you can have one kid that's yelled at mom, that's being yelled at by mom and cursed at by mom. And that kid could be like, oh, she's just crazy today. And it really doesn't stick. And then you have a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old that is experiencing that same type of verbal abuse. It's going to stick because of the age of the child. So you want to understand that the age that you were when you experienced a traumatic event matters. And I'm going to get into it. And it's important to understand this because once you understand what trauma really is, it's the residual. It's the memory, but it's mostly the implicit memory. because implicit memory is always recording because you were born to survive. And anything that threatens your survival, which is your connection to your caretakers, gets downloaded as a very negative event. And whatever you felt implicit memory, whatever you felt at whatever age, a month old, 2 month, your brain records everything because its job is to secure your survival, not your happiness, but to survive. So when we're training Navy SEALs, we don't train them to notice the sunflower in the field. No, we train Navy SEALs to watch out for the danger. They are hyper focused and hyper aware of the danger. Why? They have to survive. And that is the way the average human brain works, including a newborn's brain. And so, I see it all around me, like people, my kids are of childbearing ages, and I can see that some of their friends don't even think about this idea that this infant is brilliant and is recording everything. And then I see young kids, young moms and dads today, and they are very aware of like, oh, like, how I speak to this baby, how I put this baby to sleep, the energy of the home. It matters. I think it's brilliant. But it's so important for us as trauma survivors to understand and to recognize that what we experience as children has been downloaded into the subconscious mind. And recent research in terms of the brain and trauma suggests that memory isn't in one spot in the brain. It's mapped across the entire brain. And that makes complete sense. So it's a neural net. So imagine that your brain is constantly scanning the outside environment for a potential threat outside of your conscious awareness. And that is why you could go to a dinner party, and think, oh, I went to my trauma therapist today and I talked about this tragic event that happened to me when I was 7 years old. And I feel so good. I got it off my chest and I understand the symptoms, but. And somebody leans over the hors d'oeuvre table and is wearing the exact same cologne as the uncle that did some terrible things to you when you were 7 years old, and your body will react. Now, here you're thinking, like, I'm in therapy for a year. Why am I feeling this way? And because you have an implicit memory attack. And that's normal. And what I want to teach everybody to do, and those of you who have taken my class, I see a number of you on the call right now, you know that the whole journey, the whole arc of the courses that I teach are to teach you how to be present with what is without pushing it away, teaching you how to be present with what is. It is your authenticity. Your inner child went through this bullshit. Your inner child had all this trauma. Your inner child went through all this pain. Your inner child went through all this suffering with no witness, with no one to attach to, sometimes even with witnesses, and no one stepped in to help. I mean, it's just terrible. So this little innocent inner child is within you. They've experienced these things. They've recorded the memory, the emotional energy of this. And our job is to stop pushing it away. Our job is to stop judging ourselves, because this is what's been recorded. This is the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to remember so we can avoid it from happening in the future. And if we can teach ourselves, this is what I teach, if we can teach ourselves and then teach other people how to be with their uncomfortable feelings and be a witness for the feelings and allow them to process, there's nothing that we can't get past, nothing. And unless we learn how to allow what has been shunted and stored and repressed to come to the surface, we're going to stay stuck. And these emotions that we're trying to repress, they will come out a different way. They will come out in the form of an anxiety disorder. They will come out in the form of an eating disorder. We will, like what I did, count letters of a sentence on your finger till it lands on a 10 or whatever. You'll become a love addict. You'll develop some other type of an addiction. You'll become severely codependent. You'll give up your sovereignty and your selfhood to be a passenger in someone else's life. You'll let someone else make decisions for you because it will feel easier than addressing the boundary issues in your life. And I get that. I lived that way for a long time until I figured it out. So, implicit versus explicit memory and how trauma lives in the body. I want to explain something tonight that changes everything about how we understand healing, especially for adult children and those recovering from codependency. Because if you are the adult child of an alcoholic or a narcissistic parent, you've experienced emotional neglect. And that emotional neglect has caused you to feel like your feelings don't matter. It has also caused you to feel like you need other people's approval. And so it has also taught you that it is safer to fawn and people please than it is to say, hey, I don't like that. Or why'd you say that to me? Or to just express a need or desire. So it's safer to not have any needs. And that lends itself to manifesting as codependency. It's really an identity issue. I'm not enough. I have so much shame. And it's a lack of data issue. We just don't have the data. No one taught us how to love the self. Our brain is missing that microchip. No one taught us how to feel our feelings. We know how to dismiss our feelings, but we still have feelings. That's why we have disorders, because our emotions are out of order. We don't know how to process them. Like we read left to right. That's normal. But imagine if we didn't know we were supposed to read left to right and we tried to read from down up or right to left. It would be very confusing. And we think there's something wrong with us. It's just, there's nothing wrong with us. We just never learned that we're supposed to read from left to right. So our reading would be out of order. It's the same thing with our emotions. We're not taught that we're supposed to feel our emotions, the root chakra emotions, the belly emotions, the emotions that make us feel like we got kicked in the gut. We're supposed to be able to feel them and bring them up and acknowledge them and speak them and look at them and feel them and express them. We don't know that because no one taught us that. We were taught like, put a cork in it, kid, suck it up, buttercup, and move on, keep it rolling. And that's why so many of us have disorders. They're not disorders. They are manifestations of a childhood experience that did not afford us the life skills we needed to organize our thoughts and feelings in a way that allowed us to express our authenticity without the risk of abandonment. There's nothing wrong with us. It's what happened to us. So there are two different ways that the brain stores memory. The first is explicit. This is the thinking, storing, telling part of memory. It's the part of you that can say, I remember what happened. It holds the facts, timelines, conversations, and explanations. This is the part of the brain most talk therapy works with. But there's another form of memory that is far more powerful and often misunderstood. But if you get it, it's really going to help you shift. It's called implicit memory. Implicit memory does not use words. Now think of a newborn child. It has no words, but they have feelings. It lives in the body, it lives in the nervous system, and our emotional responses. It lives in the brain as well. It's the memory that says, I don't know why, but I feel unsafe. Or I know better, but my body reacts anyway. Or how about, I know I should end this relationship, but I just keep going back. Why? Because there's implicit memory that's not being addressed. You can know the average in terms of statistics when it comes to women who are leaving like an abusive relationship, even a domestic violence relationship. It takes a woman on average about 7 times before she's able to actually leave the relationship for good. That's an implicit memory issue. And if we go deeper, that's an identity issue. That's a spiritual issue. This woman is wounded at the spiritual level, and she has implicit memory that makes it very difficult for her to follow through and align with what she knows intellectually she should do. And it's not her fault. This is why so many adult children can intellectually understand that their childhood, understand their childhood, forgive their parents, and still feel anxious, reactive, ashamed, and or abandoned, and also fear rejection. Because the body learned something long before the thinking mind had language, not through force. Oh, I think I skipped a page. Hold on, dear one. I did. When trauma happens, especially in childhood, the brain doesn't ask, how do I understand this? It asks, how do I survive this? So the nervous system adapts. Think neurology. It tightens. It scans for danger. It learns to fawn, freeze, fight, or flee. And when those patterns happen repeatedly over time, or when a child cannot escape, the body stores them as implicit memory. Why would creator make this a thing where we would be able to remember details explicit and then implicit? Because creator loved us so much that creator wanted us to be able to react and respond without having to think. When I have an implicit memory response, it's because creator wants me to move without thinking. And so, yes, if I'm at a party, like I said earlier, and this was actually the story of a client of mine who took my first 12-week breakthrough class in 2016. And I remember it precisely because it was such a profound validation for what I was teaching. So yes, my client was doing all her work and she was still getting, she got triggered at a party over cologne. And you know what she did? She left. But here's the misunderstanding. When she left, she thought she was doing something wrong. She wasn't doing anything wrong. Her body was saying, this smell, we've smelt this before, there's danger. Get out of here. Get out of here. She was very young and she didn't have the explicit memory piece. And this is why it's so important. And in the work that I offer, I try and I want all trauma victims to understand they have to start trusting their body again. We have to start trusting our body again. If my body says move, I'm going to move and I'm not going to question it. If I move and I look silly at a party, I'm just going to trust it. And then I'm going to go think about it later. I'm going to regroup. I'm going to imagine what happened there. Could my body have been reacting to something from a long time ago? I'll regroup and then I'll rejoin the party and I'll see what happens. But I don't judge myself anymore when I have these autonomic or automatic responses because I know my body is brilliant. And if it's reacting, there's a reason. So if we had these responses and we didn't think we were broken immediately, and instead we thought, wow, my body's just reacting to something that's been recorded probably before I had language. It gets even deeper when it comes to generational trauma, because you could think about a grandmother who is pregnant with her daughter. That baby, newborn or fetus in the grandmother's womb is holding the eggs that will be the future grandchild. So in one female being who is pregnant with another female is her future grandchildren. I mean, it's just absolutely wild. So now we're thinking about, well, how does generational trauma get passed down? That's how. Imprints, mapping, neurological mapping. I believe creator wanted the species to survive. So if something bad happened to my grandmother, let's say a scent or an experience, and we know this with Holocaust survivors. So we have Holocaust survivors who have a certain level of cortisol. Their grandchildren are born with similar levels of cortisol. Like, this baby should not have this level of cortisol. So the trauma is getting passed down. Why is that important for you to know? It's important for you to know and to think about so that you can start relaxing, so you can stop feeling broken because you have these experiences or you have these flashbacks, emotional flashbacks, and you don't understand them. When you start to realize my body is brilliant, and if I'm experiencing this, excuse me, my eye is so itchy. If I'm experiencing this, there's a reason. It's not out of thin air. Something happened to me. Maybe I was 2. Maybe I was a year old, or maybe it happened to my grandmother. Maybe that's it. But we have to start returning to trusting the body. It's so, so, so important. So I'll just repeat the last sentence. And when those patterns happen repeatedly, or when a child cannot escape, the body stores them as implicit memory, not as a story, as a state. So you're going to have like emotional reactions in your body. You might not have the story, you'll have the reaction, and that's okay. We have to learn to breathe through it, pause through it, and be present with it. And the more we do that, the more that energy is able to leave us, and the entire thing shifts. We don't have those experiences anymore. And that's why trauma can show up later as emotional overwhelm, people pleasing, shutting down, hypervigilance, and feeling unsafe, even when life looks fine. And this, dear one, is not a weakness. This is intelligent survival. This is, I would say, unconscious, competent survival. You see, just because we have a trauma response, we think we're broken. No, it's a brilliant design if you understand it. And this is also why talk therapy alone doesn't always create long-lasting change. You can understand your trauma perfectly and still be triggered, because insight lives in explicit memory, while trauma lives in implicit memory. Healing happens when the nervous system learns that it is safe now. And that's in all the work that I offer in my roadmaps, the 12-week, the 8-week, and Soul School. It's about teaching you how to be safe week by week by week by week, so this work can get done. And this is not done through force. It's not done through positive thinking. That's bullshit. But it's done through repetition, compassion, and new embodied experiences where you are showing up. The witness inside of you is being born, and you're able to witness for your inner child and your emotions and this implicit memory, this implicit trauma, if you will. You're learning how to do that for yourself, and that creates inner integration. And the good news is the same nervous system that learned fear can learn safety. The same one. The body can also learn safety too. And the mind, when that happens, the mind can finally rest. I really hope that that lesson on implicit versus explicit memory is something that you can chew on. Next week, we're going to talk about boundaries versus guilt and why the holidays feel so hard. What I want to do now is go to the chat. And Helen asked, I recently heard that awareness is not healing. Your thoughts on that, please. Thank you, Lisa. So appreciate you. Awareness isn't enough. So healing is so much deeper than that. Awareness is a key to healing, because if I'm unaware of the fact that I'm hypervigilant, if I'm unaware that I fawn when my husband shuts down, and I think, oh my God, what have I done? And I can feel the rumination happening. If I don't have awareness that that is happening, then I can't step into the healing part of that. And so the healing part of that would be to learn to stop and be present with those fawning experiences, and then to work the 1, 2, 3 process. I can accept how I feel what I feel, and now I'm going to make a decision about how I feel. Compassion-based inner self-talk, where it's like, okay, Lisa, you can notice that your nervous system's been activated. You know, your daughter's really quiet or your husband's really quiet. That quietness for a codependent, it activates us, because that quietness represents a disconnection, and disconnection equals annihilation to a wounded inner child. That's why codependents attach and we cling oftentimes. We're the first to fill up space. We don't know what to do with the space in between a conversation. Like, oh no, I have to fill it up. I have to feel connected, because if I'm not connected to you, then I feel like I'm going to be annihilated. And it's wonderful to be aware that that is what's going on inside of me. But the deeper healing comes from when I move into being present with my inner child, and I can show up as the witness to my inner child and literally give my inner child a stage, and without judgment, without question, I just allow my inner child to feel everything that they feel. So awareness is not enough. It is part of the healing journey. You can't have healing without awareness. We need the presence. I hope that that makes sense. Next question. I was parentified as the firstborn in the family. I observed that I tend to attract people who come to me for advice in all areas, but the relationship is often short-lived. How is this connected to my childhood experiences as the caregiver for my siblings? Thanks for your time. Well, everything is energy, dear one. And you have caretaker energy. You might not have receiver energy. You might have the energy of someone who solves other people's problems lickety split. But you really have to work on thinking about, well, what vibrational offering do I offer? What is my identity? Literally, what's my identity? Is my identity as the, and it's listen, this is true. You could have been the parentified child, and I believe that you were. And your parents could have put too much on you because of they had 2 or 3, 4, 5 jobs or whatever. There was an illness and they needed help. I mean, that happens, especially with bigger families. So there's parentification can happen with the most well-intended parents. But when it happens, there are wounds there. And the parentified child does not have receiver energy. The youngest child, let's say the youngest child in this family dynamic is used to being, let's say, catered to or taken care of. They have take care of me energy, but they might not have sovereign energy. They might not have autonomous energy. They might not be a self-starter. They might need someone else to start something for them or feel like someone should step in and finish everything for them. So you really want to start asking yourself, like at a real level, who do I think I am? What is the energy tied to who I think I am? Do I walk around in this parentified energy willing to give people advice? Is that my most comfortable role? It probably is, because it's a path of least resistance, because it is what's familiar. It doesn't mean that's what you want. Now, here's the amazing thing. If you can see this as contrast and you can say, wait a minute, I was parentified. I'm the one that attracts people that want advice. I give that advice. Nothing wrong with that. I give that advice, but I notice that these relationships are short-lived, and I think I want someone to show up for me once in a while. Then you have to ask yourself, do you show up as that person that expects that to happen? Most oftentimes it doesn't, because parentified children don't have that data. We don't have that energy. We are the caretakers. We are the codependents. We are the peacekeepers. We are the fixer, the quicker picker-uppers. We are the mops and we are the brooms. We don't have needs. We show up for everybody else. Literally, that's our energy. We walk into the grocery store expecting to help the little old ladies that can't reach the can of tuna fish on the top shelf. We don't walk into a grocery store expecting someone to bend down and pick up our glove that fell on the floor. We don't expect that. And so you really want to start thinking about, well, how am I showing up in my skin? Now, the contrast is amazing, because if you can notice that contrast allows you to start asking for something different. Asking for something different. So that would mean maybe once in a while you just started it. You actually came here and you asked for advice. You asked for some insight, which is amazing. So start thinking about yourself as someone who is willing to receive, not just give. And use the contrast of that experience to say, I don't want to live like that anymore. I want to live like this. I really hope that that makes sense to you. Next question. I have a toxic relationship. We were a couple, but since 5 years ago, we turned into roommates. He promised 15 years ago he would quit smoking. My friends tell me he will never quit. For some people, the smoking thing could be an exaggeration, but for me, smoking is a deal breaker. I do not have strength to move out of the rented house we live in. He said he won't move out. I feel he thinks I will never leave him because he knows for me moving is a hassle. I'm 60 and he is 71. I just hate every time he comes back to the house with smoke odor. 15 years ago, he promised to quit. I have money. I could hire people to help me move out. I want out of this relationship. Why can't I just move out and leave him once and for all? Well, I would ask you to go back into your childhood, dear one, and who taught you about boundaries? Who taught you that you have to tolerate experiences that you don't want to? It's really important that you think about how this current situation fits into your childhood. People don't change unless they want to. And if this is a deal breaker for you, and it sounds like it is, and you have the money to help you move out, you might be afraid to make that leap, but the bridge appears after you jump. And I always say that if you're in a toxic relationship, if you move yourself, if you look 5 years in the future, you're still going to be in a toxic relationship if you do nothing. But if you do something to change this dynamic in 5 years, you at least you're in the field of the potential for something other than what you have. And that was what moved the needle for me when I made the leap with 3 small children. My ex-husband never thought I was going to leave. I didn't have a job. I quit college. My family turned against me. They all thought I was crazy and a selfish brat for daring to want out of a relationship that was so cushy. It always baffled me that they never questioned, like, why is she leaving this beautiful house and the vacations and the new cars? Why is she walking away from all of this without a job? Like, I don't know. You would think someone would ask that question, but okay, whatever. People only see you through their lens. But my ex never expected me to leave. But what moved the needle for me was when I realized, like, if I don't leave in 10 years, I'm going to be right where I am, just older, with less time on my side, and probably a lot sicker. And so, in terms of you leaving him, it's such a complicated issue. But I would go back to your childhood and ask yourself, like, who taught me who taught me that I couldn't stay, that I couldn't leave? Who taught me that I had to stay? Why is me choosing me so difficult for me? And these are the types of questions you have to start asking yourself, because the answers are there. You just have to find them. And that's still not enough. Like the awareness, like the question Helen asked, okay, so my mother never left my alcoholic father. Okay, so no one ever taught me about boundaries. I was never seen as a child. I was never heard as a child. So I don't hear myself. I can't see myself. I have a lot of fear about starting over. Okay, all valid. That's awareness. To heal that, you would have to spend time and literally communing with the wounded part of you that was somatically arrested at a state of emotional development that froze you in this type of secure response, because staying is a survival response. And these are the types of things that you need more structure to help move through. Like a webinar like this might support you. It might give you some meat on the bone, but this is a situation that you really need structure to go into so you can feel it and explore it, and come out the other side. But I hope that helps you at least just a little bit. Next question. My mother tried to abort me, not sure at what age, but I obviously objected and eventually was born. I felt rejected most of my life. Is this implicit memory? I would say it is implicit memory. And I think it's fascinating. I think it's absolutely fascinating I think that we can have um, birthing memory. I think if science is right and the mind and the brain and the nervous system are designed to record everything for survival, then of course I think we can record that. Now here's the thing. You can be aware of that, but you don't want to identify with that story. You got to be really careful that you don't identify with that story. I, for a very long time, identified with the inner child story. It was my story. It was a valid story, but my identity was, you are not enough. Your needs don't matter. You were unwanted by your mother. It just seemed like every word that came out of my mother's mouth towards me was grotesque. It was mean. It was mean spirited. It was just terrible. Right. And that fractured me as a person. I had no selfhood, or the self that I thought I was broken. And so I identified with being unwanted, which you can probably relate to, but you want to really be careful, because awareness, again, go back to the awareness and the healing piece. Being aware that that's how I felt is not healing. It's a step to healing. Healing is a process of unearthing that which is at the subconscious level and learning to process it fully consciously for the purpose of releasing it. And in the releasing of it, I integrate with my inner child. I finally feel whole. The hole in my chest is gone. It's filled up with love. I have self-love and empathy for my inner child. And in the best case scenario, which we talk about in Soul School, which is it's the 12-week class, the 8-week class, and then Soul School. And Soul School, that's where we are no longer identifying with the story. Our true story is our spiritual self. You see, we got turned around because we were enough and we are enough. We were born enough, but our childhood experiences screwed up our mind and created discord in our mind and dis-ease. And because the outside world touched us with its sins, the inside world got screwed up. So now there's discord between me and who I think I am. And that's what we're trying to clear. That's what we're trying to clear. And that's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. We didn't get wounded overnight. Our nervous system didn't get wired overnight. We didn't develop these trauma responses overnight. It takes time, but it works. So I hope that answers your question. Next question. I have found that the childhood trauma I pushed down emerged more fully during perimenopause and menopause. I was unable to push down anymore and not feel it. I have been attending ACA meetings, and it has been helping me with the inner child work. Oh my God, you are so right, Katie. Sometimes having children will trigger it. Sometimes a disease or diagnosis will trigger it. And yes, sometimes when we're going through, the changes, menopause, it will trigger it because we just can't carry it anymore. Menopause is a bitch. Okay. It's a bitch and it pushes us. And you know what? It's also as we age, which is a good thing. I would like it to happen much earlier, that we learn to tell our truth and let the chips fall where they may. Of course, learn to speak in a way that is regulated and it increases the chances of people actually hearing your true intent without so much reactivity on your part, which is all part of emotional regulation that should happen as a result of inner child work and codependency recovery work. This emotional regulation, this emotional intelligence, this sense of self, the ability to manage the fear that comes up when I start to speak my truth because my knees are going to shake, and getting the grounding underneath my feet so I actually can speak what I want to say. Let the chips fall where they may. Even if you roar at me, I'm going to stand there in my sovereignty and say, well, this is really what I want. And this is what I think. And this is what I feel. Your perception of me is your perception of me. That's where we want to go. And that's really important. But yes, going through menopause and getting older, just because we're getting older, we just can't carry this anymore. And if you felt led to this work, you're a cycle breaker. And I absolutely love working with adult children of alcoholics and adult children of narcissistic parents, because this demographic of people, they want to know what's wrong with them. Most people, in my opinion, want to know what's wrong with the narcissist. But when you start talking to adult children of alcoholics, adult children of narcissistic parents, and I would even say adult children of alcoholics who identify as codependent, they want to know what's wrong with me. And that's amazing, because the person who says what's wrong with me, not because there's something wrong with you because you did something wrong, but how has my childhood affected me? I want to know so that I can be the best version of myself. Are you freaking kidding me? How many people do you know wake up on a daily basis and say, oh my God, what am I doing wrong with my thinking? Why did I say that? Why do I feel that? How can I do better? Most people are not doing that. Most people don't think there's anything wrong with it. And lots of those people are members that you have to spend the holidays with. Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. Oh my gosh. So if you are here, one of the things that I want you to take away with, as we end we're going to end the webinar at 7, but one of the things I want you to take away with is really appreciating that everybody sees life through their own lens. And most people are unaware. Most people are not questioning how they think and how they feel. Most people have a feeling, then they have a thought, or they have a thought and then they have a feeling, and they just go with it. They never question it. Adult children of alcoholics, we're constantly questioning ourselves, like, was that the right thing to say? Why do I feel this way? Always. And that leads us to being able to break cycles, which is magnificent. And it's just wonderful. But be careful out there, because the average, don't argue with people, it's wasted energy. Don't argue with anybody. Turn the cheek, walk away. Namaste. Bye-bye. See ya. Bye, Felicia. Like, done. Don't argue with anybody, because most people are operating below the veil of consciousness, and most people are operating from their trauma and their ego. And most people think because they had a thought and they had a feeling and bloop, words came out of their mouth, that they're right. And the moment you start pushing someone back, or you say, well, I think, and they push you back, and you notice that there is no bandwidth for them to like even consider what you're saying, zip it, shutty, say namaste, save your energy, and walk away. Just walk away. You do not need anybody else's validation. And if your family is wrought with people like that, go to dinner, consider it entertainment, then go home. Don't contribute. If you contribute, superficial. They ask you how everything's going. You say, wonderful. Couldn't be better. Can you elaborate? No, not really. Not ready to talk about it. You give them as little information as possible if you want to keep the peace and save yourself and not be the topic of conversation 3 steps out the door from a toxic family. But congratulations, Katie. I'm so grateful that you're here and that you're attending ACA. Next question. I'm married to someone who is emotionally abusive and binge drinker, feel the abandonment in the marriage and struggle with leaving, fear of being alone. Well, I would question, dear one, what are the energetics and what's the pattern in you that would attract someone like this in the first place? Chances are it could be a history of trauma in your family where this is familiar. It blew my mind when I was in codependent recovery and I was really getting honest with myself. And there were days that I was disgusted by myself. I was like for over 3 decades, I thought I was so right, and then realizing, oh my God, I'm so wrong, trying to control everybody. And just wild. Like when you start like really waking up, it's like you start seeing your patterns. It's a very humbling experience. And when I realized that there are women, well, I'm a woman, that's why I identify, right? Like there were women out there that would never tolerate what I tolerated. Blew my mind that there was a woman out there to be like, oh, hell no, this ain't working. Like, Once, okay. Twice, okay. 3 times? Wait, we're on year 3 and we're still talking about the same shit? No, 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 honey, I want out. No more babies with you. Like, it blew my mind that women like that existed, and even men like that existed. And then I realized that came from true self-worth and true self-esteem. And I, like you, I was afraid of being alone, but I was also afraid that I was afraid of what other people were going to think. I was afraid of his reaction. I was afraid of what the neighbors were going to say. I was just afraid. It was a spirit of fear. And I would say that I needed an exorcism from the spirit of fear, that I absorbed as a child, because I was afraid of everything, specifically what other people were going to think if I dared spoke up and spoke the truth, because speaking up was akin to death in my childhood home. You were banished from the kingdom. Like, get out of my sight if you cried. Like, literally, my father would bang his fist on the table and get out of here. So it was a very real fear for me. And it never left me until I really got serious about inner child work. And so I would question your self-worth. Like, how do you feel about yourself? Is it the fear of being alone, or is it that you've never felt enough to be alone? And lots of women that settle for relationships like this, we really don't think that we can function outside of a partner. And I can tell you, I did this. I jumped with 3 kids and no job, no health insurance, no support from my family. I jumped. And look at me now. Look at me now. And I will tell you that we are, as human beings, so much stronger than we give ourselves credit for. And fear is really what we have to face. Like, imagine if fear wasn't an issue, what decision would you make today? What decision would you plan for the next 5 months? What decision would you plan for the next 6 months? What would you do today to shore up yourself so that if and when you wanted to move, you could? For me, it was like, I better get certified, because I quit nursing school my last semester. Not proud of that, but I did. And always thought I'd go back, but I didn't. I had babies instead. And when I was deciding to leave my ex-husband, I knew I was going to have to need a job. So I toiled like a little mouse at 2:00 in the morning. And I studied to become a personal trainer. I didn't get 1 certification. I'm an overachiever, if you can't tell. I had to have 3 certifications, and I graduated in the top 1 or 2% of that class. And I was shoring myself up. I didn't tell anybody. I was just like, okay, I'm going to be without him one day. So I better start thinking about providing for me and my children. And you talk about walking by faith and not by sight, and just trusting that because I was choosing love, it had to work out for me. It had to. Whenever you choose the darkness, it doesn't work. But when you choose the light, even if you don't have all the missing pieces, it always works. But I do think that you have to be ready to make the next move. So I love what Abraham Hicks says, get ready to be ready. Get ready to be ready. Whatever steps that you have to make in the future that you think you might need to make, if you should decide to leave him, start making those decisions now, because that's going to help you gain the confidence to do whatever you have to do. Next question. How do I heal my nervous system to feel safe? Because this will solve a lot of my struggles. That's a great question. I can give you a broad stroke, aside from, this isn't about me, promoting my classes, but it's nearly impossible for me not to talk about the classes that I offer. But the 12-week breakthrough coaching program is a great way to stabilize your nervous system, because it's neuroscience. All my courses are neuroscience backed, trauma informed. They emotionally regulate you. They deal with implicit and explicit memory. They're designed to integrate you, and it happens over 12 weeks and then 8 weeks and another 10 weeks. So 30 weeks of this regulation. But if that's not something that you're ready to commit to, then the first thing that I would do if I were you is I would fall asleep to a meditation that's designed to ground me. So it could be a healing heart meditation. It could be an inner peace meditation. It could be an I am meditation. It could be an inner child healing meditation. I have, I think, over 100 meditations on YouTube, and I don't run any ads on my YouTube on the meditations. So that's something that I would start immediately. I would wake up, and before my feet hit the floor, I would remind myself that I was grateful that I woke up. Gratitude is the attitude that you want to milk. So trauma survivors, your brain is like always on the highway of, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Right? We're the little bird that pecks and then looks up, pecks and looks up, pecks and looks up. We're terrified all the time, even if we're not aware that we are. We have to teach our nervous system that we don't have to live that way anymore. And so we want to extend periods of gratitude more often. And if you do that over and over and over and over, and you don't quit, you will have to shift. I do think roadmaps save you time. That's why I create them. I'm going to offer you, before we close the call, I will offer you a simple exercise, very, very simple exercise, to ground you in the present moment. And again, this is, I see so many of my clients on this call who have taken my classes, and what you learn is that you have to do this with consistency. Your nervous system demands consistency. It demands safety, and commitment. There's no way that I could have gone from being the woman that was stuck between the toilet bowl and the tub with her 6'1", 6'2" screaming husband over her, screaming about him not paying the mortgage. Like he was financially abusing me, telling me that he was going to let the house go into default. He hadn't paid the mortgage in like 3 months. He had taken the checkbooks. I had no access to any money. My kids and I were eating like pasta and macaroni and cheese, and I was down to like the last bit of food. It was just terrible. And I could have gone to the bank at any point in time and taken my half of the money, but I never did. Oh my God, because I was so afraid I was going to be seen as selfish, like, oh, the codependency. Oh, I don't advise that. Let me tell you, go to the bank, take half your money. That's what I say right away, pronto. Don't say take all of it. Take half of it, at least, you're entitled to it. But the fear was just absolutely crazy. But in order for me to get from where I was to where I am, I had to commit. I did this work every day. I still do this work. I have my journal to the right of me. I have my meditation book next to me. I go through my journals that I've had for years and years and years since my kids were little. You have to commit to this work, and your nervous system has to upgrade, which is really, really cool. If you want more information, visit my website. We can help you out, or send me an email, and we'll hook you up. Next question. My mom was mean to me when drinking when I was young. She still drinks and is mean under breath, but not like it used to be. She lives with me now, and I hate it when she drinks. This explains why perfectly. Logically, I know I'm safe, but immediately I get anxiety when I know she's been drinking. So perfect. You are talking exactly about what we were talking about in the first part of this session, which is your body knows the effing truth. Love on your body, dear one. Say, body, I'm reacting. I know exactly why you're reacting. This is a very valid, normal, neurological, emotional, energetic, psychological, mental response. My body has recorded the facts. When my mother drinks, she's a bitch. She's cruel. She's belligerent. She's critical. She's mean. I don't like it. And my body feels unsafe. And I am unsafe. I'm psychologically and emotionally unsafe. I don't know how physically unsafe you are, but certainly when you feel emotionally unsafe, that is akin to a threat, a real physical threat. At least it feels like a threat. It registers as threat. The brain can't tell the difference. And so when your mother's drinking and your body activates, your body's telling the truth. Why would we tell our body it was crazy? Why would we judge our body? Why wouldn't we say, thank you, body. You're my best friend, because you, out of anybody in this entire world, everywhere, you know what I've been through. You recorded it all. These emotions are truth. They're truth. And I'm not ashamed of them anymore. So if I was in your situation and your mother and my mother said something like, what are you looking at me like that for? Well, I get nervous when you drink. What do you get nervous when I drink for? Because you tend to be belligerent and mean when you're drunk. And I don't like it. That's my truth. So now all of a sudden, the words that I'm speaking are in alignment with what I'm feeling. That's healing, because that's authenticity and that's integration. That's the way we heal. So I hope that this makes sense to you. And we'll answer one more question. What can I do when my body won't stop shaking, but I know I'm safe doing this work? So much is coming up. I'm feeling depressed. So I remember working with someone from London who was starting to have the shakes from this experience. And one of the things that we talked about was imagine you have like a bunch of rowdy kids, right? They've been in school for like 12 years and they want out. And you've kept them locked in a cage, and they've done their time. They've sat, they've listened, they've done what you've told them to do. They played by your rules and they're done. It's time to freaking graduate. And so if you imagine like you have like 100, like 12th graders that are shaking a cage, right? And they want out. That's sort of what happens when we're on the precipice of a breakthrough. Like we start shaking because it's energy wants to be processed. Now, it's super uncomfortable, dear Susan. It's super uncomfortable. But if you could not resist the shaking, like I was saying to Nicole, if you could not reduce the shaking, if you could not resist the shaking, if you could say to your body, it's okay. You're going to shake, you're going to rattle, and you're going to roll for a little while. I give you permission to release this energy through shaking. I cried going through this a lot. And the road back to me, I called my tears the canoes that carried out my pain. I also broke out. I also started to stink like I never stunk before. I was like, wow, like this toxicity is coming through me. And yes, many times I would go super cold. My legs would freeze. My hands would freeze. I would start to shudder. My jaw would shudder and I would shake. And eventually I just learned like, okay, this is the way energy is trying to escape my body. I must be ready to let this escape. And so you can put yourself into a warm Epsom salt bath. You can take yourself into a warm shower. The key though, Susan, is to not resist it. The key is to tell yourself, I give myself permission. I give my body permission. I give this energy permission. It could take a half hour. It could take an hour. It could take an hour and a half, right? You might have to put yourself to bed. I give myself permission. You would have to relax though in your body, because your body knows if you're lying, right? So if I say I give my body permission, it's not going to work. But if I coax myself like I imagine, a loving mother or an older sister would, like you can even use me as an example. Imagine I was holding you and I was telling you, it's okay that you're shaking. I'll hold you until you stop shaking. You don't have to worry about shaking. There's nothing wrong with shaking. Your body is trying to release this excess energy. It doesn't want to carry it anymore. It's trying to make space for something else. And by the way, you can't let healthy energy in until you give the unhealthy energy or the toxic energy or the repressed energy permission to leave. So inner child can only handle so much of repressed energy. And so when we start to shake, sometimes it's like, okay, I'm ready to release this. If we cry, we're releasing. Sometimes if we scream into a pillow. I had a client that lived on a mountain and she would just run out in the field and scream. I was like, well, that's pretty cool. She's like, oh yeah, I just screamed my head off. It's like, I don't got neighbors. So I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. But she was releasing. I had another client that would hit a punching bag, right? And she would release and sometimes she would cry, right? So get active. You might want to run on the treadmill. You might want to box. You might want to dance. You might want to sing, but just give your body permission to release this energy in a way that it needs to release this energy. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. You're just ready to release, in my opinion. So I hope that makes sense. The other thing was, I remember my therapist said to me that he diagnosed me with codependency and depression. But he said that your depression is tied to codependency, and codependency, eventually we figured out, was because I was raised by two repressed, depressed adult children of alcoholics that didn't think there was anything wrong with them. And so, the line, like the pattern made sense. Oh, okay. So they had trauma. They were adult children of alcoholics, right? Like repressed their trauma. My mother was probably depressed. My father was probably depressed too, but they were so controlling because they didn't know how to deal with their emotions, and they would rage at us, right? We absorbed all of it. Okay, that makes sense. Well, no wonder I'm such an anxious little kid. And so I was going through this journey. It was like very interesting to like make all these connections. But when my therapist said, well, depression is anger turned inward, I thought, I wasn't allowed to be angry. I wasn't allowed to be angry. Now, what heals depression is expression. So try to get creative in your release. Sometimes art therapy, like just get some watercolors and what am I feeling? What am I feeling? What am I feeling? Just write it out. Journaling has always been very, very cathartic for me. When I start to shake, I start to worry about and just let it out. Just let it out. Get it out. Express it in some way. So I hope that this makes sense to you. So we're going to end the webinar with just a quick grounding exercise. So this exercise is designed to bring your nervous system back to the present. Now, remember, most trauma victims are always in the past. They're always in the past. They're always in the past. They're in the past worrying about what happened in the past, what might happen in the future, what's happening now, how can I control the future, with flashbacks to the past. We're never really truly present. And healing is learning how to be present with yourself and with everything that you've experienced so that you can be present fully, mindfully as a witness to your inner child and do this work efficiently. And again, roadmaps help. But I'm going to do my best in this webinar to teach you as much as I can in the time that we've allotted. So we want to bring the nervous system back to the present moment. It makes sense, right? Okay, so we're going to try this exercise. So if you're willing, you're going to place one hand on your chest and one hand on your lower belly, right? Now what I want you to do is take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And just feel your body relax. Breathe in. Connect. Feel your hand on your chest. Feel your other hand on your belly. Bring your awareness to your hands and exhale. One more time. Awareness is in your hand on your chest, other hand on your belly. Feel your body relaxing. Drop your shoulders, relax your neck. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to look around the room and silently name 3 things that you can see. I can see my dog Alice making all that noise on my couch. I can see a chair in the left corner of my room, and I can see a pair of glasses on my desk. Okay, no problem. I can see my dog, I can see a chair, and I can see the glasses. I can see my dog, I can see the chair, and I can see my glasses. For you, it's going to be different. So go ahead, just repeat that in your head. Okay. Now take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and exhale longer than you inhaled. So inhale for 2, exhale for 4. Again, inhale for 2, exhale for 4. Wonderful. Now, quietly say to yourself, I'm here in this present moment. In this present moment, I am safe. Now we're going to integrate. Notice one sensation in your body that feels neutral or steady. You're not fixing anything, you're just noticing. Notice one sensation that feels neutral or steady. It could be your heart, could be your breathing, it could be your feet on solid ground. Just notice one sensation that feels steady and consistent. Just noticing, maybe it's your hand on your chest. That feels pretty consistent. My breathing feels pretty consistent. My heartbeat sounds and feels pretty consistent. Now, just taking a moment to recognize that outside of the thinking mind, your body is supporting you. How brilliant is that? Outside your worry, your mind is in the background. I'm sorry, outside of worry, your body is in the background supporting you. When we do these types of exercises, we're slowing down, we're meeting our body where it is in the moment. And we're bringing the body and the mind back online with presence. Now you just want to pause for a minute and think about what you've done. You put your hand on your heart, your hand on your belly, you looked around your room, you noticed 3 things. You told yourself you were safe. And you also noticed what was steady in you right here, right now, outside of worry, outside of rumination. There's still a steadiness. That's the flow of abundance that's within you. That's the flow of source, creative source that you can tap into at any time, but you have to tap out of rumination and remind yourself or bring yourself back into presence. So this is what regulation looks like. We're not forcing calm, we're allowing presence. So imagine if you did this 3 or 4 times a day. Nervous system check in. Let me put my hand on my heart, hand on my belly, and let me take 3 deep breaths in. Let me exhale. Let me feel my shoulders drop. You are bringing yourself to the present moment. If you do this 3, 4, 5 times a day, you will deactivate the nervous system and you will begin the upgrade. You will be less reactive. You will be more conscious. You will be more aware. Now, if you sprinkle recovery in with this type of regulation, then your long-term progression looks very, very good. So, I love the question. Thank you. Awareness isn't enough. We need to bring presence into the healing, which means we have to slow everything down. This is why all of my courses, we meditate. All of my courses, we do neuroscience journaling prompts. We bring you back to the now, pull you back out from the past, stop worrying about the future. Presence, presence, presence. We teach you how to show up for the inner child as the witness. And everything has been slowed down. And emotional regulation in combination with a new program, a new roadmap, that's when we're rocking and rolling.